Don't feed the trolls. That's what I've been told several times. I'm going to do it anyway. And the reason I'm going to do it is because I think it's actually, there's something instructive here. This really encapsulates and illustrates the whole point I was making in my last upload about Robin Williams' death, depression, addiction, adverse childhood experience, and basic human empathy. And I'm referring to a comment that was left by the unknown atheist on that upload. I'll read it to you now. Really nice there, drama queen. Capitalizing on the death of a Hollywood loser. Wallow in self-pity much? Now, this is obviously a troll comment. My regular subscribers have sort of taken this guy on, and I appreciate that, of course. I've made special time in my day to make this video because I think it's actually, again, this comment is emblematic of what I was referring to. I mentioned in passing Tony Stewart killing a guy on track, and what I was referring to there was these kind of knee-jerk, irrational comments left on both sides of the fence. People who think that Tony Stewart should, lock him up and throw away the key. He did it intentionally, etc., etc. To people talking about young Mr. Ward, and natural selection, and he deserved it, and these kind of things. Just really, really terrible, lacking of any kind of human compassion and empathy, and completely irrational statements, because obviously these people don't have the facts. They don't have all information possible to be making these wild assertions, wild pronouncements on what they think has happened. And the same thing is at work here. And so, he says, nice there, drama queen. Hey, I have no problem admitting to the, wearing the label drama queen. I'm cool with that. My wife calls me that all the time. But to say capitalizing on the death of a Hollywood loser, well, first of all, he clearly was not a loser. And I'm struggling to be empathetic to you and be compassionate to you while still trying to figure out what would drive you to say something like that about a fellow human being, and one who brought a lot of pleasure and laughter to millions of people. You're unknown. Suffice to say, I think he impacted the world in a far more positive way than you. So, and I'm very much in favor of extending compassion and empathy towards you if you decide to tone down the rhetoric from these comments and engage with you in a human manner. So that door is available to you if you chose to take it. But capitalizing, I'm struggling to figure out what you think I'm capitalizing on here. And I imagine the key is probably in your comment about wallowing in self-pity. I don't know if you're a regular subscriber, watcher of my videos or not. If you were, you'd know that I've been away for a little while. And so I'm not looking for content to get notoriety or to boost my channel. I've been away. I just sort of dropped off the map. The reason I came back to make this video is because I felt compelled, because there were some things that I felt weren't being said in the dialogue. And I felt like I could help somebody. Now, capitalizing, I guess this would sort of assume sort of a self-serving thing there. And I actually have no problem admitting to being self-serving. In fact, this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while about selfish and selfless, because I don't think there's any such thing as selfless behavior. And I think that's a topic we need to discuss. I admit to being selfish, and a selfish part of me wants to help other people for whatever benefit that brings back to me. Endorphins, notoriety, respect, admiration, who knows what. I have no problem admitting to that. But to say capitalizing, I mean, at least part of my motivation is selfless. I really would like to help other people. And I think there's a dialogue here that needs to occur in order to make that happen. Now, the wallowing in self-pity is what I think you were getting at here when you said that, is that I was capitalizing on this in order to wallow in self-pity. And I assure you that there's no self-pity involved here. If you think I was projecting or somehow referring to my own childhood or something like that, I'm not. Didn't have the best childhood on the planet. Okay, not king of the hill in the perfect childhood department, but I was not abused and I wasn't really neglected. I don't have those issues. So this is not a pity party for me. And when I mentioned my father in passing, understand that I'm not having a pity party for my relationship with my father. I have nothing but compassion for my dad and his experience. And actually, I'm very thankful that he did not transfer his childhood experience onto me, that I didn't have to. My brother and I have talked about this, and I've said to my brother, we don't even know the depth of what our father saved us from by not perpetuating the experience that he had as a child. So this is by no means a pity party. And a few people, of course, pointed out some of these things. Somebody said, did you even watch the video? And he said, yeah, I did watch it all. The part where he starts whining about bipolar fucks like those on YouTube over here, for example. Watch the video again, buddy. Wasn't whining about bipolar. I was reading a comment that was left on my YouTube feed. And your lack of compassion for people with mental illness or depression that you call losers is really telling here. And it is exactly what I was referring to in terms of a lack of human empathy for other people. He goes on to say, the bipolars I know of are scumbags who wallow around in their illness rather than take charge of it. Any more questions from the peanut gallery? Well, this is really the comment that I wanted to address the most, because this shows your complete lack of compassion for people who are dealing with something that is larger than they are, is greater than they are. And I think it's really, really unfortunate that you choose this approach. My dad was diagnosed bipolar. Now, this is a label. I'm not sure how well it fits each and every individual. However, he had severely adverse childhood experience. His father was brutal with him and was distant and harsh. I don't know how much that had to do with his dysfunction as an adult, and it seemed to take time. He didn't seem to develop his dysfunction until his late 40s kind of thing. The bipolar sort of portion of it anyway. And he did seemingly not take charge of his illness, and I don't think he could. I think that's the whole point. And for you to be so discompassionate about this and not just think for just a moment that maybe these people can't. I mean, do you get mad at somebody with a heart condition for not being able to run a mile? Do you get angry at them? Do you say they're just wallowing around? And in fact, I think when it comes to my dad anyway, my own personal experience, which is all I can really relate this to, he did realize the damage that his bipolar disorder was causing in his life. So he would go through these phases, right? He would get manic and he would be very aggressive with people, and he would, go on spending sprees and late night phone calls and came across as threatening. He was a big imposing guy. So I think he was less threatening than he appeared, but people were afraid, and that would get him in trouble with the police and that sort of thing. And it would damage relationships, including his with myself. And then he would come down, he would reach a depression point, and I think some of the stuff that he did would start to sink in. He didn't actually remember all of it, which is really, really critical to you being so critical, I think, of people who are bipolar. And his only way of dealing with it was to sort of become more and more reclusive. He started cutting himself off from his community because he was embarrassed. I think he felt like he owed retribution, but didn't know how to go about it. He didn't know how to seek forgiveness for things, including with myself. And so he just became more and more reclusive. And he also became, according to my brother, more and more convinced that he needed to stay on his medication because he was afraid of the things that were happening when he would reach a peak. And he was completely under the care of our medical system and our mental health system here. So he was getting all the treatment. In fact, his treatment was court-ordered, my friend. because people were concerned that he would go off the rails and do something terrible or something, which never happened, never materialized. His treatment was court ordered. So even if he was unable to take charge of his mental illness, the government was taking charge of his mental illness. And admittedly, this is not something we have a cure for. So for you to say, these guys are a-holes that refuse to take charge of their illness, there's no cure, pal. That is ridiculous. That's like saying that, somebody is an a-hole because they're not taking charge of their pancreatic cancer. Listen, again, I'm fine to open the door to compassion and empathy with you if you want to engage in a human way. But what you've done here is to illustrate the entirety of the point that I was trying to make in my last video. People have been leaving terrible remarks on Robin Williams' children's Twitter. And you accuse me of capitalizing on his death. It's kind of weird anyway. Somebody dies and we see, a way in which we could maybe stop that from happening to other people. The majority of my video was talking about how, coroners and air traffic safety crash investigators investigate these things so that we can avoid them in the future, If somebody dies and we see ways that we could avoid that in the future, a terrible way like suicide, we're supposed to not talk about it, I guess. If we see people speaking in error in ways that we don't think are helping, zip it up, because you wouldn't want to be accused of capitalizing on something. If you've got something, if you disagree with my hypothesis about adverse childhood experience, bring that to the table. Talk like an adult. You can be welcomed to the adult table, or you can stay there and join this teeming mass that I see on social media that have nothing good to say about anything. Getting back to the Tony Stewart example, I have seen the most ill-informed, crass, rude, disgusting, vulgar, disconnected comments. I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I like to think the best about humanity. But these things are testing that. Your comments are testing that. Come to the table with something. If you disagree, or you just want more information, or you just like me to clarify on something, ask it. Say it. But bring rationality to the table. Bring compassion to the table. Bring empathy to the table. Or just go away. Because you are not helping. That's the message, the take-home message I would like from this video, is if you're going to be an uncompassionate and lack any kind of human empathy, and you just want to throw out accusations and barbs at people, you are part of the problem. You're not helping. Just do us all a favor and just don't do that. If you want to bring something real to the table, then bring it. I'm happy to have, several people have said, well, there are mental illnesses that are sort of genetic, right? That are passed down from family member to family member. And so it's not all adverse childhood experience. And I'm willing to recognize that there may be a genetic component, sort of a nature component at times, sometimes a nurture component, and sometimes a combination of the two. What they talk about, triggering certain genes, right? So you've got a combination of nurture and nature. Genes may exist, but if they're never triggered, never awakened, then they may never impact the person and so on. But that's a dialogue to have. This, hey, drama queen, you're capitalizing, and these bipolar fucks are, what have you contributed to anything? So I know this was a little bit probably too long and too ranty, but I really think it's important. What my main message here is we need to have some compassion, and the freedom of the internet that allows people to just run around, machine gun spraying negativity around is really unfortunate. And with great freedom comes great responsibility. And I wish people would take a little bit more of that responsibility and think about what they're saying before they say it. And imagine that the world can see them when they're making that comment. I'm here making videos. My face is out there. You can see who I am. I'm willing to put myself up on YouTube and say my piece. And you hide behind an icon, and unknown is even in your YouTube name. Come on out. Come on out and be seen. You know, come on over to the adults table and let's have a dialogue. I'm not saying that I'm right about everything. I have some things I'm passionate about. And to accuse me of capitalizing when I take a break from a break to make a YouTube video because of something that I feel really, really compassionate about, I think it's just a low blow. And I would urge you to think about that and think about what is self-serving in that for you. Because again, I'm willing to admit that I'm a self-serving person. I'm selfish. I have no problem with that. We're all selfish. I don't buy selflessness. I don't buy it. What was there for you? What were you capitalizing on? And if you're not willing to engage in that introspection, I'm afraid, I've got to disengage with you. If you are, I'd be more than willing to have some sort of a chat with you, Skype, comments, YouTube video responses, whatever you'd like. But I invite you to do some of that introspection, reread your comments and ask yourself, what was in that for you? For everyone else, thanks for enduring this. Thanks as always for watching.